I'm Sam Hazledine, and today I am here with Dr. Gareth Andrews to talk about work-life balance. Now, the great thing about this episode is it's been a really tough call to schedule because Gareth's been focusing very much on the balance side of this whole work-life thing and has been off climbing Mount Cook and off to the UK and all sorts of things. Gareth is an anaesthetist, and not only has he walked unaided across the Arctic to the North Pole, but he's also walked to the South Pole too. He's done all of this while building an amazing relationship with his wife and growing a family of 2 children. Now, this episode is not to teach you how to go to the North and the South Pole, or even to suggest that you should do it, because you probably shouldn't. I'm interviewing Gareth because I think the thing about it is to do all this, to build a career and a family, all while doing these things, he really had to become pretty good at work-life balance. So he can give us a very interesting perspective. So welcome, Gareth.
Hi, Sam. It's great to join you.
Awesome to have you here. Now, the intention of our talk today, of this episode, to the listener, is to maybe start to shift your perspective of medicine being a barrier to work-life balance to medicine being an amazing enabler of work-life balance. There really is a lot of talk about how hard it is as a doctor and how hard it is to maintain work-life balance as a doctor. And to some extent, there are some challenges in the profession that can have us to make us have that conversation. But to some extent, if we just keep talking about it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. To talk about it and to call it always a problem feeds it and makes it more of a problem. So the idea of today is to start to change that. So what we're going to talk about today is a few areas. We're going to talk about how medicine can be a platform for life, whatever that means for you. We're going to talk about how to get clarity on what's important, specifically what's important for you. We're going to talk about the importance of acceptance. Love to bring a bit of Buddhism into any of these episodes. And we're going to talk about some tactical tools, prioritization, setting boundaries, and the importance of flexibility. So let's get into it. Gareth, let's start by talking about medicine as a platform for life. Now, as I shared at the start, as we talked about in our preparation, a lot of doctors see medicine as a barrier to a great life. How do you view it?
I see it as absolutely, just as you say, Sam, as a platform to go on and do great things and to pursue those things that we really love in life. Doctors inherently have a range of talents and a range of interests, and sadly, along the way, for many doctors, those things just fall to the wayside with long training hours and difficult exam processes. And so to use medicine as a tool to basically open doors and as a platform to go on and pursue those other things in your life, I think it's quite a unique profession in that sense. And that's what I've tried to do throughout my career.
And how have you done that? What are some of the examples in your life?
I think that I identified very early on when I was at medical school, I found this beautiful link between exploration and medicine. And I really found, because the outdoors and exploration is a big part of my life, and I really wanted to marry the two together. And when I came to the realization that medicine can take you all over the world, it can introduce you to a huge range of incredibly interesting people, and it gives you this unique set of skills that can be used anywhere. And for me, it really hit home that I could use that as a platform to go on and pursue my career in exploration.
I mean, obviously, exploration is what you've pursued, and that's not going to be what any doctor is interested in. So, how do you see medicine as a platform for other areas, feeding other areas of doctors' lives?
I think that the tools that you gain as a medical student and then as a junior doctor across the board through that are applicable to medicine but are applicable to all other walks of life can be used to to follow the other interests that you may have in life. And I think that, in that respect, it's quite a unique career choice.
Absolutely. As you're saying that, and we're going to talk a bit more about flexibility later, but as you were saying that, and you were talking about that standard old pattern of you get busy with obviously medical school, and then as a junior doctor, and then exams, and the problem almost is that we habituate into we don't have work-life balance, don't we? So we have to be and we're going to talk about flexibility specifically, but we have to know when to lean in, but we also have to start to learn when to lean out and pursue other things too. It's a bit of an ebb and flow, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. There'll be busy times where you just need to focus on medicine and your and work, but just like you say, and there will be other times where you can do other things. And I think we'll talk a bit about acceptance, but it's accepting those difficult, tough times, and moving forward, but at the same time just holding on to all those other things in your life.
I think it's a great way to start is shifting the paradigm of medicine is terrible for work-life balance to it can be a great enabler. So let's talk about one of those areas that is really important, which is around clarity. You and I spoke a lot about this, about how important it is. I like that old saying by Seneca, if a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favourable. If you don't know where you're going, nothing's going to work. And I think that's somehow, sometimes how we look at our lives, and, no wind becomes favourable if we're not really sure what we're aiming at. Why is clarity? Why was it such an important topic for you when we talked about work-life balance? And then let's talk about how you gain it.
If you can identify early on in your careers, when you're a medical student, when you're a junior doctor, those elements of your life that you really enjoy, that make you tick, and you really don't want to give up. And just working out at that early stage how you're going to fit those in with your career. So if there's something you absolutely love doing, and you know that you want to hold on to that, then, and it's going to take you away from medicine at periods of time, or you do need a bit of extra flexibility in space, then maybe being a cardiothoracic surgeon isn't for you. Maybe you want to choose a specialty that will enable you to be able to pursue those things. So by having an idea early, or identifying early those things you want to hold on to, and then choosing a specialty that will allow you to do that. And I think that's really the key, and identifying that early is really important.
And there's a reality with that, isn't there, that there's always compromise. Like life is compromise. You can have anything, but you can't have everything. So I think this is a useful point around getting clarity about what you will and won't compromise, and then actually fitting that in with because that's the beauty of being a doctor. There's so many career paths, and so no matter what you love, you can probably find a career path that both fits in with what you love, but also is a career that you love too.
Medicine is a world within a world. It's huge. There's huge potential to pretty much do whatever you like and pursue whatever career path will be most fulfilling for you. And you can select that while holding on to all those other things that you enjoy doing.
It is a pretty unique profession, isn't it? In that you can pretty much go wherever you want, and you'll be in demand, and get paid well, and to some extent pick and choose to make it work for you. I think we underestimate sometimes how mobile and flexible we can be if that's what's important to us.
And when we talk about sort of identifying those things early on and then building your career around that, there's not just your specialty choice, but it's also choosing where you're going to do your training, really looking at the hospital and the ethos of the hospital or the department that you're going to be training in. I've been very lucky to always work in very open-minded, supportive departments. But it's because I've selected those departments in particular. And it's allowed, it's quite a unique thing to be able to take, months off at a time to go and travel to the polar regions. But it's doable. But it involves a long-term plan and lots of moving parts. But it's certainly possible.
I mean, it's a great point, actually, isn't it? Because we talk about the importance of choosing specialties and specialties that meet your needs and intellectually stimulating, all that sort of stuff. But to a vast extent, your enjoyment of work life is going to be dependent on the environment you're in. We run the largest medical staffing agency in Australasia, so we know all hospitals aren't the same, and we know they don't all treat people the same. And so how would you go about finding a hospital? But it's not just the hospital, because it actually comes down to the department level, doesn't it? You actually have to get down to a head of department who will support life outside of work. How would you go about finding that pace that meets your need?
The main thing is to talk to people. Identify those places where you think you might like to train, that have those specialties that you would like to focus on, and then talk to as many people as possible. Talk to the junior doctors, talk to the training registrars, and then if it seems like a place where you'd like to go and work, then go and speak to the head of department and ask them how they feel about the balance between your specialist work and your what you choose to pursue outside work, and they'll give you a really good picture of what life will be like in that department. And I think that speaking to the specialists, not just the junior staff, but the specialists in that department as well, if you're able to, because looking at those people, that's the end game. That's where you're going to be in 6, 8, 10 years. Are they happy? Are they balanced? Are they doing what they want to do? I think because people don't go into medicine thinking, I'm just going to be a doctor for the rest of my life. That's all I'm going to do. But unfortunately, it becomes that.
It's the default if you're not actively pursuing and encouraging other things.
Because it becomes all consuming. And, we go through times, like we talked about the ebb and the flow. When you're stuck into specialist exams, it feels like that's it. You're just stuck in this medical world. You're working full time, working lots of overtime whilst trying to pass these exams, and you stop doing everything. But then suddenly you're through the other side, and you feel like you've forgotten what you like to do. You've forgotten that you like to play the clarinet in the Philharmonic Orchestra, because it's been gathering dust for months. But I think the key for me has always been knowing that period, however long it is, 4 years, whatever, it will come to an end at some point. So I used to have Post-it notes here, actually, on this wall about Antarctica and various other things that I wanted to achieve, and I would look at them and I would think, I am doing this, so I can go and do that.
I love it. I'm a big believer in life about gear changes. That what served me as a 20-year-old, man in his 20s, boy in his 20s, whatever. Well, it's not going to serve me now when I'm a 40-year-old. I need a different approach, and I think that sometimes it's not evolution; it's step change. You just need to actually shift gears, move into a different phase, but you've got to do it mindfully. You actually have to think about it so that you do it. Let's talk about acceptance, because I think that was part of our pre-discussion, and it's I did a lot of work with Dr. Burnout and Dr. Wellbeing, And one thing that I've seen over the past 20 years of looking at this is, as doctors have less and less acceptance of the status quo, they have higher levels of burnout. And not saying that the status quo is not something that should change. That's not my point. My point is that as we create a less and less acceptance, Buddhism, you create more suffering. So, where is acceptance appropriate, and what is it from your perspective?
I think it's always been, for me, it's been something that I've really, really struggled with, especially through the harder times, the busiest jobs, where you feel like you never leave the hospital. We would have all experienced it, and just getting immensely frustrated that this isn't who I am. I am working towards something that I want to achieve, and I want it to be my career, but I don't want it to define me. And I used to get frustrated that I couldn't, pursue those things that I enjoy, climbing in the mountains and the travel, and then I'm not sure when it was, but at some point I just came to the realization that I just have to accept that for a period of time, all I have to focus on is work and my exams, making sure I'm healthy and happy and there for my family. They're the only things that matter. But always knowing that however long, in 6 months, in a year's time, I'm going to be on an ice sheet somewhere doing something that I absolutely love. And just accepting those periods the hard periods will come, and you just have to put your head down and get through it.
And you only make those harder periods harder if you are resisting them and thinking, I should be doing something else, or this isn't how. If you just lean, suffering is resistance. If you just lean into what is, this is a busy period. There's a lot of studies, we're not going to compromise on the family, but it might be family and work. That's it. You're only going to make it. It is what it is. So why wish for something else? But I think that's a great point, is to keep that, and that I'm not letting go of that. It's there. It's in my future. It's just not for right now.
Yeah, and I think that I love being an anaesthetist. I feel immensely privileged to be able to practice this specialty. I spent all morning doing obstetrics. It's just such a wonderful thing to help people, bring their little people into the world. And so, like I said, I love the job, but it comes with hard times, and I think just getting through those hard times is so important, because there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think if you're stuck in specialty training and you can't see that, you don't really love it. You're just grinding away. You kind of don't know why. Then maybe it's time to recalibrate. Maybe it's time to think about another specialty. I think that we've talked about how medicine is a world within a world. I think that there is a specialty for everyone, and I think that it takes a lot of bravery to say, this isn't for me, I'm going to go and do something else. But the option is always there.
I had that discussion in this one that specifically focused on medical students and junior doctors. It's a long career. So, it's okay to course correct. It's okay to try different things. As doctors, we're inherently achievers. You have to be to get into medical school. And so, giving up on anything isn't in many of our DNA. And I think that's just another perspective as well. A course correction is not giving up. It's maybe just leaning into something that's going to be better for you. Yeah. So acceptance is key. I think there's some really good stuff about that. We get clear. We get, we learn to accept what's in front of us. Let's talk about some actual tactical tools, some practical tools to maintain some balance. The first area we're going to talk about is prioritization. So talk about the areas that you think need prioritization, and we'll talk about why they're important.
I think that for me, I look at them on different levels. I look on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, and like on a macro scale at the long-term stuff. Every couple of years, we always have a big expedition that we're working towards. And so that's always sort of in the distance, and we're building the years towards that. But just on a day-to-day level, prioritizing time with the family, time for yourself, for your own physical and mental health, and just working that into the daily rhythm of our lives, and making sure that is a priority for us. Often those things that we do for our own physical benefit or our own mental health are the first things to go when life gets busy. But making sure that we protect that time and make it sacred.
Something that, again, doctors, our careers are important to us, and so there's always a danger that we can make our families feel and actually be in second place. How do you, as a father, as a husband, make sure that your family doesn't feel like they come second to your career all the time?
Structuring life so you have busy days, and you will have specific commitments to your family, and making sure those commitments that you've said you're going to be there for are met, but also knowing that there will be days of the week. For me, it's often Tuesdays and Thursdays where I'm just not going to get home. My lists are supposed to finish at 5, but they never do. They'll finish at 9 or 10 o'clock. And so knowing that is time that will be completely locked up by work, but also knowing that my daughter does ballet on a Friday afternoon, so I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take any work on a Friday afternoon. I'm going to work on Friday morning, and then that time, whatever, if I'm asked to cover or that's time that's locked away.
And as I said before, life is compromise. And if we're doing one thing, we're not doing another thing, and it can be so tempting to take on more work or to say yes, and the needs in medicine are so high. But you've only got one chance here to be your dad to your daughter, and so protecting. I love that. Pick what you're going to protect, and also I guess have the conversations with your family to say that. And my job means that there is times when I am busy.
Yeah, exactly. As long as everyone understands that, then I think that's how you make everything work.
Absolutely. So prioritization of self, prioritization of family. We've talked about self in many of these episodes. Prioritization of family, I think, is a really important point. Let's talk about setting boundaries, because there's a lot of talk about the importance of setting boundaries. Everyone knows they're important, and there's a reality in medicine that they can be difficult at times. So how do you approach setting boundaries?
I think, again, this is something that I've always struggled with throughout my medical career. I think it's probably the most difficult thing that people come across. Boundaries are so incredibly important for our own, protection, really. I find that when we've spoken a little bit about it, saying yes to covering, saying, picking up extra work. There will be days where, in whatever specialty you do, we're doctors. We don't do 9 to 5. There will always be time where we have to do unrostered overtime. We just have to. We just can't leave. It's just not an option. But you do have the option not to take the extra shift, or not to chew, because as you said, there's always extra work, there's always people needed, but being able to say, I can't, that's not, I'm just not available to do that. And I think, and one thing also for me is keeping those emotional boundaries. Being tempted to take on something incredibly stressful, say for example, I have I don't work one Monday a month. That's just the way my rostering works. Occasionally I get asked to do things. I've fallen into the trap of saying yes to a highly complex case on a Monday morning, immediately following something, a nice day with my family on a Sunday. And I've just been absent really mentally. I've been spending the whole weekend working, prepping for the case, running it over in my mind. And that in itself is taking you away emotionally from what should be family time. I think it's something that I feel, maybe it's something quite personal to me. And so I find that I have to protect those particular boundaries as well.
Absolutely. That's a really interesting one, that, there's emotional boundaries and not just looking at the work flowing into your family life, but it's the work taking over your brain and then taking over your family life. I mean, saying no, a lot of people are uncomfortable with saying no, and I understand why doctors can be particularly uncomfortable when we talk about urgent and important. And the problem with, a challenge in medicine is the urgent is often important. It's often not unimportant. How do you learn how to say no? How do you learn to as and when to set those boundaries and then communicate them?
I think the most effective way of saying no is to give a reason for it. Well, I remember specifically when I was a senior registrar, I just finished my exams, and it was a week or two afterwards, and I was asked to do a Monday morning presentation, which would have meant I was asked on the Friday. It would have meant pretty much working the whole weekend to put this presentation together to present it to the department on a Monday, and I had plans with my family, and I hadn't spent any time with them in the lead, with all the exams, and I am a yes person. I do like to please. I normally say yes to things. That's what I've struggled with boundaries. But I just said no. I said no because I just can't, because this weekend is for my family. I can do it any other time. Do it next week or whenever, but I'm not doing it on Monday. And I think following, saying no and then following it with a good reason has always been the best approach for me.
Now, we talked about your approach of when it comes to setting boundaries, of controlling the controllables, and I'm interested for you to share what that means, because I found that a really interesting and useful perspective.
It's something that just over the course of my medical career and my exploration career as well, it's something that the theme works quite nicely with both. There are things within your control that you can work on that will massively alleviate stress and anxiety from your clinical work. Things like just doing all the, there are things that I work into my practice, like getting in early, doing the prep work, setting everything up, removing all those, like controlling the things that I can, and then knowing that there will be all, things will happen that I will need to react to. But then from an expedition perspective, just planning meticulously. So you have got everything possible the way you want it. And then once you're out on the expedition, you just got to play what's in front of you. Things will change, things will go wrong, and that's fine because you've planned for it. And I think that's a nice way. It's a nice overlap between them.
It's a great approach to a lot of things. I do quite a bit of public speaking. It's the same. I all have a very clear plan. almost scripted, and then I get up on there and you kind of throw it out the window because you've planned so well that you can actually be effectively flexible. I think that if you just turn up to be flexible, you're often a bit useless. But if you've actually planned it to the nth degree and then you go way off plan, you're still infinitely more prepared. So we touched on it earlier, flexibility. And we touched on the importance of being flexible as a doctor. You know, the schedule is not always within our control. Talk to me about flexibility. Talk to me about, you know, how you use it and why it's important to you.
I think it sort of leads on from the themes that we've been talking about. We work in, especially anaesthetics, it's a dynamic environment, not just in the immediate clinical sense, but there's always emergency lists, there's always extra patients. You want to be a good colleague and you want to be there for your colleagues. And I think that having a flexible mindset is incredibly important because you can apply it in the immediate sense, in the immediate clinical sense where things are moving and changing very quickly. And then in the broader sense where you want to be able to focus on your work and your colleagues while also building in that time out for yourself.
It's quite related to our conversation about acceptance as well, isn't it? And our conversation about boundaries, because you need to be flexible enough to know what to accept, also what to resist, flexible enough to know when to say no, but also flexible enough because we work in a team environment, as when to say yes. So there's very much an art to this, and if we get it right more often than not, then we're doing probably all right. I think that's been brilliant. Is there anything else you'd say around sort of tools that you think are really important for maintaining a sense of work-life balance?
Look, I think we've probably touched on all the things that I really try and focus on to maintain that balance, and the things that I try to do on a day-to-day basis, knowing that there's going to be busy days and not so busy days, making sure I'm really sure of my priorities and when to say yes and when to say no, and I think that comes with experience, and as you move through your medical career, you become better at finding what they are and what they mean for you. And I think it is a very individual thing, but the general themes, having them in your mind, is a very good thing.
Look, I think this has been such a great discussion. I love the way that we started with shifting from medicine is a barrier to work-life balance to actually, what if medicine's an enabler? How can we use medicine with its infinite range of possibilities and opportunities to enhance our lives? Because why wouldn't we? And then talking about the importance of getting clear about what's important, about leaning in, acceptance, and then some of those practical tools. So thank you, Gareth. It's been, for me, I think it's been a really interesting discussion. What message would you like to leave people?
That medicine is, we're incredibly privileged to be doctors. Medicine can be an incredibly rewarding but very difficult career. I've always tried to surround myself with positive, like-minded people. And for me, medicine has really opened doors. It's enabled me to do all the things that I really love to do. And medical students and the junior doctors, they're the future of our profession. And in the coming years, they are going to push the boundaries. They're going to take medicine to the next level. But always be mindful of the things that you love and don't let them go. Find that thing that really lights your fire and chase it alongside your career in medicine. Because if you do, you'll be you'll be happier, you'll be more fulfilled, you'll be a better doctor, better partner, better parent. And so it's been something that I've tried to do my whole career.
I love it. Well, I think you've done a pretty good job of that. And I think to anyone listening, I think talking to you shows that you don't have to go to the North and the South Pole to create work-life balance. But if that's what you want to do, you certainly can.